Dracula. A love tale, they say love can bring even the dead back to life. But what happens when that love belongs to the most feared creature in history count, Dracula? This is not just a tale of horror, but of passion, obsession, and a love so strong, it refuses to die. Even in the darkness. Our story begins in 15th century Transylvania, where the name Dracula was first spoken, not as a curse, but as a legend. A noble warrior, Vlad Dracula fought countless battles to protect his people. But behind the armor, he was a man deeply in love with a woman named Elizabeta. She was his soul, his light in the shadows of war. But fate is cruel. When Dracula was away fighting, Elizabeta received false news of his death. Believing her beloved was gone forever, she threw herself into the river, drowning in sorrow. When Dracula returned victorious and found her body, something inside him broke forever. He had fought for God, for country, for honor. But in that moment, he felt only betrayal. Betrayal by heaven itself. In blind rage and grief, Dracula desecrated the chapel where Elizabeta's body lay. He renounced God, cursed the heavens, and in his fury, drank the blood from the chalice upon the altar. And thus, he was damned, transformed into the creature the world would forever fear. Count Dracula, the immortal vampire, was born. But even in damnation, his love remained. He swore that death would not separate them, that he would find her soul again even if it took centuries of darkness. And so begins Dracula, a love tale.
Centuries passed, empires rose and fell, but Dracula remained, a shadow moving through time, haunting castles and abandoned villages, drinking from the living but never finding peace. But then, in the late 19th century, in the heart of London, Dracula saw her, not Elizabeta, but a young woman named Mina Murray-Ann, ordinary schoolteacher, engaged to a man named Jonathan Harker. But to Dracula's eyes, Mina was no ordinary woman. She looked exactly like Elizabeta, the same eyes, the same gentle smile. It was as if his lost bride had been reborn. For the first time in centuries, Dracula felt something more than hunger. He felt hope. He followed Mina from the shadows through crowded streets, dim gaslit alleys, even to her very home. At first, she only sensed something, a presence, a chill at the back of her neck, the feeling of being watched. Then, one evening, she saw him standing in the fog, tall, pale, his eyes glowing faintly red, and yet, she did not scream. There was something familiar, something almost comforting, about this stranger. Dracula began visiting her in dreams. At night, Mina would hear whispers in her room, feel the brush of cold lips on her skin, see visions of castles and rivers she had never known. And in those dreams, she loved him. She remembered him, but love, when mixed with darkness, is never without cost. Jonathan, Mina's, began to notice changes. She was distracted, distant, her skin pale. At times she spoke of places she had never been, words and languages she had never learned. Jonathan grew fearful, and when he traveled on business to Transylvania, he discovered the truth. Dracula's castle, still standing, filled with horrors beyond imagination. Meanwhile, in London, the city itself began to feel the Count's hunger. Strange deaths swept through the foggy streets, victims drained of blood, their throats marked, and Mina, though alive, carried the signs, her eyes darkened, her lips redder, her heart torn between two men. Dracula visited her one final time in secret, taking her hand and whispering, "Do not fear me, my love. Across death, across time, you are mine. You have always been mine." And for the first time, Mina spoke the words that sealed her fate. "I remember you."
Jonathan returned from Transylvania, half mad with what he had seen in Dracula's castle. He warned Mina, "He is not a man. He is a monster. You must resist him." But Mina's heart was no longer her own. The bond between her and Dracula was too strong, older than life, older than death. Even when Jonathan and Professor Van Helsing, the famed vampire hunter, tried to protect her, Mina defended Dracula. She claimed he was not a beast, but a man cursed by grief. Yet, Dracula's hunger could not be hidden. He began to feed on Mina slowly, not to kill her, but to bind her to him forever. Each drop of blood was a promise of eternity. Mina trembled between fear and desire, between Jonathan's desperate love and Dracula's eternal one. The hunters cornered Dracula one storm-filled night. In an abandoned chapel, firelight flickering against broken stone, they fought. Jonathan slashed at him with a blade. Van Helsing raised his crucifix. But Dracula was more than a shadow, more than a man. He was centuries of sorrow turned into power. But in the chaos, it was Mina who stepped forward. Her voice broke through the storm. "Stop. He is not the enemy, he is mine, and I am his." Tears filled Dracula's eyes, the first tears he had shed in 400 years. For a moment, the monster was gone, and only the grieving man remained. He touched Mina's face, whispering, "My love, you have given me back my soul." And then, in the most haunting twist, Mina herself raised the blade. With trembling hands, she drove it through Dracula's heart, not out of hate, but of mercy. Dracula gasped, his body burning, turning to ash, but his eyes never left hers. His final words were soft, almost a prayer. "Thank you, Elisabetta, for setting me free." As his ashes scattered across the chapel floor, Mina collapsed, crying not for the monster he had been, but for the man she remembered, the man she had loved across time. And when the storm ended, silence filled the air. Dracula was gone, but his love, eternal and cursed, lived on in her heart.